Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing great as always. Now in the world of Hasselblad and their XCD system, their fastest lens currently is their 80mm 1.9 lens, and it's a beautiful lens, but actually if you look on adorama.com at the moment, it is $4,845. It's a beautiful lens, but it does come at a price. And unfortunately at the moment there's no third-party lenses that people can reach out to and get for their Hasselblad cameras. Wait a minute, that is until now. So actually the nice people at ZHONG YI Optics have sent me the 65mm f1.4, what they call their Speedmaster. It's part of a series they have, it seems. And this is the first and fastest lens for Hasselblad XCD system cameras. So yeah, let's just check it out. Okay, so first off, they sent me this lens. It's really quite nice, and they sent it in this crazy box. So I'm just going to pull it out of this box here. I've never gotten a lens in this kind of like a fake leather or real leather box. It's pretty interesting, but we'll just pop this out of here. And ooh, here is the actual lens itself. Okay, so this is the lens right here. This is a 65mm on the medium format style of camera. So that makes it about a 50mm for our 35mm DSLRs, like I'm shooting on the Nikon Z9 right now. And it is a 1.4, you got the 1.4 here. So currently, the fastest lens for Hasselblad, like I said, is the 80mm 1.9. So this goes a little bit faster, and 1.4 is really, really nice. I've used it a lot with 50mm lenses and my 105 and stuff like that. So it's a great f-stop. I love using it. So the other day I went out into Harajuku. I borrowed a camera from Hasselblad down there, their flagship shop. I borrowed their X2D 100C, brand new camera, really, really nice. I have a video on that camera as well. But yeah, we borrowed that camera and I went off into Harajuku, did a little bit of street shooting, did a quick portrait session with a model and some sakura. It was really nice. Check out the little session we did a real quick edit on that, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my thoughts on the lens. It's pretty interesting, yeah. So come right back and we'll talk about it in a second. Cheers. yeah, so that was a fun session. Had a great time wandering the streets of Harajuku for a little bit, playing with the camera, getting used to the lens. And then also meeting up with my model at Yoyogi Park, which is a great big park. And we got lucky enough that there was some sakura in there, some cherry blossoms going that we could use. And we also visited a couple extra spots in the park that I really liked. So I hope you enjoyed that. But now, yeah, I used the lens for the full day, had a good afternoon with it, so I had a lot of time to play with it. And I thought I'd just go over my thoughts of the lens and how I felt it matched up with the Hasselblad system and that kind of stuff. So I'm basically going to make this really easy and just go through the good, the bad, and the ugly of using this lens. And it's always good to start off with good news, so we're going to start off with the good. So in general speaking, the lens is a very nice build. It seems to be made out of metal. It's very heavy, so there's lots of glass in here. It's actually basically the same weight and size as the 80mm 1.9 Hasselblad lens that I mentioned before. It's very hefty, but it's not like crazily unheard of weight that it's something that Hasselblad users will be used to for sure. There's two rings here on the lens. Obviously we have the focus ring and we have the aperture ring. Both of them are very smooth, they're very nice, and they move very smoothly, but not too loosely. So it's easy to use for sure when shooting. When shooting with this lens, say down to 2.8 or so, I found that it was really sharp. It was really quite nice. We can check out an image or two here. So what do we got here? I think this was around 2.8. So we can jump into here. It's a very sharp, very, very clean image with this lens. It looks really beautiful at 2.8 or so. I'll talk about 1.4 in a second as well, but at this depth of field, it was perfect. It was really, really awesome. Now, one difficulty with this lens, as I should mention, is that it is a fully manual lens. There's only manual focusing. So the 80mm 1.9 Hasselblad lens, that's $4,845. It's because it's an autofocus lens. So you're getting the autofocus for that extended price. But if you're used to manual shooting, then this is great for what it is. The great thing about the camera that I was using, which was the X2D 100C, is you can do a little double tap on the back screen while you're shooting. It'll put you into 100%, and then you can focus with that. So it's really good for focusing and that with that. So even though it is a manual lens camera, you can use the focus peaking with the Hasselblad camera, and getting your focus was actually not that difficult once I got that a little bit more used to doing. And anything that's not moving, it's not difficult, but of course, if you have moving people or moving subjects, that gets a little bit more difficult. So I'll talk about that in a second, obviously. And yeah, what's really cool about this also is it is, like I said, the first third-party Hasselblad usable lens out there on the market is what I've been told. I talked to the people at Hasselblad. They didn't know of any other lenses out there that are third-party for the XCD system just yet. So this is the first one out there. And if you look on the ZHONG YI Optics website, it seems like their average price for these kind of lenses is about $800 to $1,000. So that's less than a quarter of the price of the next best Hasselblad, closest, kind of Hasselblad lens. So no autofocus, it's manual. You get faster lens, so 1.4, not 1.9, so you get a couple, like an extra aperture or so, and it's a quarter of the price. So, if you're already in the Hasselblad system, you're already obviously used to spending a bit of cash, a bit of money on your lenses and on your gear. Picking up like I'm going to try this lens and see how it works for $1,000 or so, $800, is probably something that's not all that negative for people already in the Hasselblad system. So I would say that's a good thing. Getting more third-party lenses out there for any system is a plus for us photographers, adds competition in the market, and it gives us more variety of things we can try out. A lot of fun little lenses like this hopefully will start coming out for Hasselblad more in the future. So that's all the good things I basically saw about the lens. And, depending on what I'm talking about, I might mention a few more. But so now basically, it's a good lens. It's nice. But there are some things that I felt that I had a little bit of trouble with while shooting. So one, it's heavy. It's a really heavy lens. I did say it is basically the same weight. Like, I held the 90mm 1.8 in my hands at the Hasselblad shop and weighed them out. Basically about the same weight. So I think Hasselblad users will be used to this. But someone who's not used to having such a kind of short, really heavy lens on the camera, after a few hours of shooting, I could just hear myself saying so many times, like, oh, moy, oh, tsukareta, moy, like, oh, it's heavy, I'm tired. And I didn't really do like crazy amounts of shooting, just some street shooting and then an hour session. Be aware of that. You might want to hold it first and throw it on the camera and see how it feels before you buy it if you can. At least try it with the 90mm and see if the weight is okay for you, because it's heavy, it's pretty hefty. Also, one thing that I kind of found a little bit unfortunate was the ring here, it doesn't click. Like, it's not a click stopping ring like say you'd find on a Fujifilm lens or something like that. It is very smooth, it is really nice and moves nicely well, but I found a couple times when I was out shooting, I'd be moving around a lot. I move quite a lot when I shoot, and it slid a bit on me. So I thought it'd be on 1.4, it'd kind of be slitting in between the two or a little bit higher even. So when you're using this lens, you really want to be aware of what aperture you're on while you're shooting. And also, this lens doesn't communicate the aperture settings to the camera. You can't be looking through the viewfinder and check the aperture on the little in the inside image there, and it doesn't even give you the information on the data file in the from the camera. It's not in the metadata at all. So you need to be really careful and watch this ring while you're shooting and be aware of what f-stop you're on while you're shooting, so it's not sliding around and you're accidentally underexposed and shooting on a completely different f-stop. So just be aware. It's very smooth, but it doesn't stop and click and lock. So it's, I don't know. For me, someone who moves so much, it could be a bit of a negative point. Now, talking about the aperture, the 1.4 aperture. At first, when I was shooting like some cherry blossoms and that, I found it to have quite a bit of a halo from the whites and things like that. So I can show you a picture real quick. So we have this shot here. And if I just pop into here, you can notice that there is a bit of a halo effect happening around the whites here, around here and that. This is something I've seen with other older like 50mm lens that I've had and stuff like that when I'm shooting wide open at 1.4. And it's not something I particularly like in my lenses when I'm shooting in the street and things like that. To give you a better look at it, I did a bit of a test. So starting here, I think this is at 1.4, and you go in and you can really see this halo around the whites here coming off of this sign. And then we come down a bit. A little bit of halo there, come down a bit more. I think we're now like around 4 or 5.6. So now it's gone, completely gone. And even more down to like 8. And I think we even jumped up to about 16 as well. So as you come sharper down, this halo goes away, obviously. It's not a big issue. And it's something that I personally just don't quite like myself. But it's kind of a Shogun eye, like it just can't be helped. And it's not the most expensive lens in the world, so not unexpected. Now, saying that, shooting the portraits, so just like some sort of up-close portrait, having a bit of a halo seemed, or this lens, even at 1.4, it made it for a bit of a softer image, I found, just naturally kind of my instinct of looking at the image. It's sharp, like the eye here, it's the back eye, but it doesn't matter. But this is in focus and it's sharp, but it's not like overly sharp and like overly like mechanically sharp, it seems. It's quite nice and soft, which is something that for model photos like this, it seems to turn out quite nice. I actually really like how her face looks at 1.4. I really like how the images turned out. It gives like a nice, softer, more natural kind of look to the images when shooting in the street, and there's like some nice highlights and whites and stuff like that. Maybe I wouldn't really like the halo effect, but it seems to work well with the model at 1.4. So I really like it actually. And this is, for myself, this is something more that I would use for model shoots and stuff like that, other than street shooting. So yeah. Okay, so one other thing, and this is more just like a lack of skill in myself maybe, and other modern day shooters who are so used to amazing autofocus on our cameras and that. Using a manual lens is difficult. It's a challenge. In the street, everything's moving all the time, so you can pre-focus on something and get somebody coming through your focus trap, is a term that somebody used the other day. Or you can really talk to your model and tell her, okay, like when I'm taking the picture, don't move until I tell you, because 1.4 is really narrow focus area that you can use. So if your model's not used to that, or you're not communicating well with your model, they'll be moving a lot, you'll be trying to refocus and trying to chase them down. It can be really hard. Found it difficult for myself at times, but communicating with my model, she was awesome, so she knew what was going on after the first 5 minutes or so, and we had all that like lined up and everything, so it was good. It's just there is an added skill needed when using a manual lens. So if you're used to it, awesome, more of the power to you. If you're not, then being able to double tap on the screen on the back, go in 100%, focus, and come back out is a lifesaver. Once I was doing that with the model, especially getting really close on her eye and doing that, everything worked out fine. Pretty much all the shots, like these ones at the beginning, I was still getting used to it, but as we went through, all the shots are bang on, super, super tight on the eye, and it worked out really well. So it's just a challenge, but it's not the end all be all of not buying the lens. Now, as you might expect, I don't know, this lens, when you're looking through the viewfinder especially, it's quite noticeable that the center of the image is much brighter than the outside of the image, which means vignetting. So I noticed quite a lot of vignetting when I was looking through the viewfinder. And I'm not I don't mind vignetting at all in images. I think it looks quite nice sometimes when it's done right. But in looking through the camera, it felt like there was a lot of vignetting, but then when looking at the images, I didn't do anything with the vignetting. These are edited, but I haven't changed it at all. I don't notice a huge amount of vignetting. So it's kind of weird. It's just something I noticed, but the images still look fine. It's not overly vignetted at all. It was just something that I noticed when I was like, you focus and you reframe and stuff. I was like, oh wow, there's quite a noticeable vignette in the middle of the image here. But in the end, it seems to be fine. It's just you might notice that while you're shooting it. So and this is also like a preference of style and stuff like that. So just take a look and see if it's enough or too much for yourself. And if it's okay, then yeah, it's great. But just there is some noticeable when you're looking through the viewfinder especially. Kind of lastly, the ugly. Nothing really all that ugly about this lens. And this one just comes down to, again, personal style and preference. But shooting with this lens kind of backlit by the sun, I do this a lot. We did this a lot this day. You'll notice that in several of these images, there is quite a pronounced flare. So we have quite a bit of flare. So we have this blue and red flare coming through here. I noticed this on quite a few images through the day. Let's see, there's another one here, another one here, another one there. There, it's not so bad. This one's not too bad. Here, it's okay. This is okay. There it is again, right here. And there's one image. Yeah, this one is just way too much. Like, that's just crazy. So, like, I personally like flare. I'll often I'll shoot in ways and with the sun and that I actually get flare in my lenses and stuff like that on purpose. So this isn't something that I dislike. I find this particular image, it's too strong. It's quite distracting for my eye in here. But some of the images that are not too bad with the flare even. I think this is my favorite image out of the entire day. It has the flare, but it's not going across her face too much and it's not covering her eye. So it's not really like super standout. And it looks good. I think it looks neat. It adds a little bit of a natural element to the image. And maybe it's kind of like a signature look for this lens. I don't know. Actually, aesthetically, I don't mind it. I kind of like it too. So, and it's not like it's in every single image I shot either. It's just whenever the sun was in behind. Like these, I love these shots and it's not in there at all. So not a big deal. But for some people, lens flare, particularly one that's quite unique and different like that, might be a turn off. So that's why I kind of like was the only thing I had to search for and put into the ugly category. So, sum it up. For the bang for the buck, I think it's going to, I don't know the exact price of it. It's going to be for sale, somewhere between $800 and $1,000 USD, probably. So less than a quarter. It's like a fifth of the price of the next closest lens in the actual Hasselblad lineup. And it's manual. Okay, so you're not getting autofocus, but for the bang for the buck, this is a pretty cool lens. Like if you're already ditched out like $8 grand, $9 grand for a body, you're spending $4 or $5 grand on lenses each time. Popping down $800 on another lens that's manual and 1.4 super fast, it would be awesome. Like I don't see it as a big, huge, I'm not going to do that. But people who are already in the system, in the Hasselblad family and that have been using it for a while, I think it's a good option to have as a fun lens to use. And the 1.4 is really, really good. Bokeh looks awesome. Like you've seen the images. I'm sure you have your own opinions about the bokeh and all that kind of stuff. But in my opinion, it was a fun lens to use. Like again, the bang for the buck is great. So yeah, check it out, and hopefully it helps your shooting, and hopefully you can get some creative stuff going. Would love to shoot at night, but I was only able to borrow the camera for the lens for a few hours during the day. So if somebody out there has this for the nighttime, I'd love to see how it worked out. Yeah, so that's the video. Hopefully it's helpful. If you did find this helpful, a like would be great. Subscribe and comments as well. I love you guys' comments all the time. So yeah, and thanks a lot. Hope to hear from you guys and talk to you soon. Cheers.